What's the hardest thing about writing? Well, it's getting started. Maybe you're having a hard time coming up with a story idea, or you're stuck on where to take your story next. If you want a way into a story or a way through, I have 9 story starters to help you. This free PDF is full of story seeds and prompts to get you going. To download your 9 story starters, go to nancypanuccio.com/start. That's Nancy with an I, Panuccio with 2 C's, nancypanuccio.com/start. What questions should you ask before you plot your story? Whether you outline every chapter or write from the hip, on today's episode of Writer Unleashed, I'll break down 3 questions you should explore before you outline your plot. Stay tuned. Writer Unleashed is for you, a writer who has a story you want to bring onto the page and into the hearts and minds of readers. I'm Nancy Panuccio, writer, editor, and writing coach. And each week, we'll explore techniques, mindsets, and inspiration for writing stories readers can't put down. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let's begin. So many writers I talk to or see on social media think that the first thing they must get clear on before they sit down to write their first draft is plot. And while plot is essential, it relies on character. But even if you're a pantser like me, even if you have a more exploratory approach to writing your first draft, that doesn't mean that you can't be purposeful with those first drafts, with that exploratory approach. So we can break this down into 3 main areas to explore. Number 1, character viewpoint. Number 2, desire. And number 3, resistance. So character viewpoint, desire, resistance. So before we dive in, let's get clear on what a story is. Story is a character pursuing a desire despite resistance. Your character comes into the story already wanting something and wanting it beyond reason. Now, what's commonly referred to as conflict, what makes a story dramatic is simply your character encountering obstacles to getting what he or she wants scene by scene. But before you can design a plot, before you can write your scenes, create dialogue, setting, or description, you need to know who your main character is, what he or she wants, why they want it, and what makes them tick. So I like to think of 2 plots working together. And this is a concept I learned from the memoir writer Sue Silverman, and it's just as relevant for fiction. Now, in every story, we have the horizontal plot and we have the vertical plot. The horizontal plot is what happens. It's the action. It's laid out in a logical forward motion. The vertical plot is the story itself. It's the interior journey. It's the emotional through line, and it's what's urging your character through everything that happens. Said another way, plot is the motion, story is the emotion. So both the horizontal and vertical plots intersect. They're inextricably bonded. But the emotional through line, the vertical plot, is the first plot to develop deeply. Because without the emotion driving your character from page 1 all the way through to the end, your plot is nothing more than a scaffold. Now, the purpose of plot is to show your characters emotional patterns, their emotional footprints. It's there to dramatize the internal journey. So once you know who your main character is, what your character wants, and why they want it, and even how they're getting in their own way of getting what they want, the plot can be anything you like. In other words, the plot serves the character, not the other way around. So plot isn't something you do first before you write that first draft. Plot is a way of thinking your way through your story. So here are 3 questions to explore during every stage of your drafting process. In fact, these questions will help you plot your story. Question number 1, whose story is it? Who's your main point of view character? Now, often writers will tell their story from several characters' viewpoints, thinking that this is the only way to tell the story. Now, sometimes that's the right approach. And for a deeper discussion on point of view, listen to episode 31. But often, multiple points of view are the wrong choice, especially for beginning writers. Too many character viewpoints only water down your story. So before you tackle multiple points of view, practice getting grounded in one point of view first. So whose story is it? From whose perspective is the story's action being reported, observed, and experienced? Who has the most to lose? Who will be transformed the most by the time we reach the story's end? Question number 2. What does your main character want? Your main character, your protagonist, already comes into the story wanting something. By the end of the story, she either gets what she wants or not. Desire is the engine of your plot. It's the engine of your story. Now, there are 3 levels of desire operating simultaneously, and these need to be explored and deepened at every stage of the drafting process. We have the concrete desire, we have the unconscious desire, and then we have conflicting desires. So the first step, you want to articulate your character's desire in the simplest terms. For example, Anna Karenina wants to be with Vronsky. That's the concrete desire. But then there's the unconscious desire, the desire that's running underneath, that's actually driving your character to want and to act. So, concrete desire, Anna Karenina wants to be with Vronsky. The unconscious desire is Anna wants true love. And then we have a third level of desire, which is conflicting desires. Now, our desires are never that clean. So Anna Karenina wants to divorce her husband, but she also wants to retain custody of her son. Now, he's not a bad husband. In fact, the reader comes to understand that he's a better man than Vronsky. Now, Anna admires her husband. She respects him, but it's a practical marriage. So she loves him, but she's not in love with him. She's not attracted to him. So her desires are conflicting. She wants to remain, she wants to be with Vronsky, but she wants to keep custody of her son, which in the climate that she's living in, the time that she's living in, is not a possibility. So question number 3, what's standing in your character's way of getting what he or she wants? Now, again, we can break this down into 3 levels. We have outside resistance, environmental resistance, and we have internal resistance. So who is standing in the way? So for Anna Karenina, it's her husband, who's a good, honorable, and prominent man. How does time and place exert its own resistance? What's the environmental resistance? Now, resistance is going to be heightened by the political and socioeconomic climate and the collective morals of your story's time period. So ask yourself, What's happening politically, socially, economically, and how do these forces affect your character's pursuit of his or her desire? Does it thwart your character or help your character? So, for example, Anna Karenina's desire to escape her loveless marriage is further complicated by the late 19th century Russian society. This was a time when divorce was not easy to get and when women were ostracized for pursuing divorce. It also led to a loss of child custody. So, if Anna Karenina's desire to escape her loveless marriage were set in any other time and place, we'd have a much different story with very different obstacles. So, for example, right now, we're in the midst of a pandemic and one of the most polarizing political times in history. There's social unrest, uncertainty, suffering, and turmoil. So a story set in our current climate will be complicated by that chaos. But how is your own character standing in his or her own way? What's the internal resistance? Now, we all resist change. We're hardwired to resist our own transformation. That's because change is uncomfortable, it's painful, and it's hard. We also fear that by being thrust in a challenging situation, we'll be exposed for who we truly are. And this fear comes from some unnamed shame or lack of belief in ourselves. So your character will be their own worst antagonist. Your character will stand in his or her own way of getting what he or she wants. So let's recap. The questions you want to ask before you nail down your plot, as you're writing your story, as you're revising, keep these questions in mind. Whose story is it? Who has the most to lose? Number 2, what's the core desire? What's the concrete desire, the unconscious desire, and conflicting desires? And number 3, what's the resistance? What's the outside resistance? Who's standing in the way? What's standing in the way? What is the environmental climate and how does that stand in the way? And what is the internal resistance that's coming from your character? Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of Writer Unleashed. More free resources are available at nancypanuccio.com, so head on over there to grab your gifts. And if you want to connect with more like-minded writers and with me, join us in our private Facebook group over at facebook.com/groups/Writer Unleashed Community. It's totally free to join. I'll see you next week, same time, same place. Till then, keep writing, and I'll talk to you soon.